Hey guys, we're going to make this real short and sweet. This is an assignment where the work that we're doing is pretty, hopefully, pretty obvious and intuitive to what you've already been doing in math for the last few years. But it basically has to do with taking polynomials and we're going to add, subtract, and multiply them. And so if we take polynomial x squared plus 3x minus 5, and I want to subtract x squared plus 2x minus 8, we have to understand that this negative, this subtraction, has to apply to the whole formula, the whole equation that follows after it. And so often what we'll do is we'll just distribute that negative so we can get rid of the parentheses altogether. Now this first parentheses doesn't have anything in front of it to distribute, so it's just x squared plus 3x minus 5. I'm not going to put a minus here. I'm going to put whatever sign the x squared has. So if you can imagine this x squared, you know what, let's do it. Let's make this x squared be a negative x squared originally. Let's assume it was already a negative. Then this negative times that negative becomes a positive, and I'm no longer subtracting, I'm now adding x squared, but I am going to subtract 2x, and I am going to add 8. So you see how we changed the signs of these three terms back here by distribution of the negative. If this had been a plus sign in the middle, there would be no distribution. I would just take the terms the way they are. And I'm looking for an x squared and an x squared plus x squared, that's going to be a 2x squared. I've got a positive 3x and a negative 2x. Those would combine to make a positive 1x. And I've got a negative 5 and a positive 8. That's the same as plus 3. And there we go. So the first part of your assignment is about adding and subtracting polynomials. After that, it becomes about multiplication. And multiplication is really no different than any FOIL proposition you've done in the past. There's two different types that you'll be looking at. You'll have some where it's x squared plus 3x minus 8 times something like x plus 5. If FOIL is a four-letter word, first, outer, inner, last, that doesn't quite work here with this setup. In fact, because you have 3 terms in the first one and 2 terms in the last, you actually have to have 6 different multiplications. 2 times 3 is 6. And we can go ahead and we can just draw arrows. I think you'll see me do that in the homework video. I actually like using an array to make this a little bit simpler. And so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to create this array using my 2 parentheses. This array would have an x and a 5 on the side. I've got x squared, 3x in the middle, and negative 8. So now if I multiplied x by x squared, I would get x cubed. If I multiplied x by 3x, I would get 3x squared. And if I multiplied x by a negative 8, I would get negative 8x. Then if I go to the next row and continue this multiplication process, 5 times my x squared would be 5x squared. 5 times my 3x would be 15x. And 5 times my negative 8 would be negative 40. One of the reasons I like this format so much is that when you look at the diagonal values, you will find the like terms. And so what that gives me is an easy way to add up my terms. I'm going to have an x cubed, that was the guy by itself. This next diagonal has a 5x squared and a 3x squared. That's a total of 8x squared. The next diagonal has 15x and negative 8x. That's a positive 7x. And then, of course, we have our negative 40 out at the end. Whoop. Excuse my scratching through my own work. But, I mean, that's really where we're at on that. Pretty straightforward there. The only other type of problem is going to come when we have multiple multiplications to do. What happens when I take one equation times another equation? Because we live in a three-dimensional world, doing a multiplication that's two-dimensional doesn't totally make sense. I mean, there's some that's good use of it, but there's also situations like x minus 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 3. And in this situation, like, how do we do it? Well, it's the same as taking 4 times 5 times 3. We don't actually multiply all of them at the same time anyway. We multiply 2 of them, get an answer, and then we multiply by what we didn't multiply by in the first place to get our final answer. We're going to take the same approach here. We're going to multiply these first two parentheses together, get an answer, and then we'll go from there. So if we just go through the steps of FOIL, because it's just a 2 by 2, it's x squared plus x minus 2x and minus 2. That still has to be multiplied by x minus 3. Now I could just do the multiplication now, but I also know that I have some like terms. And if I have like terms, it'll save me some multiplication if I clean it up now. So that becomes a negative 1x minus 2 times x minus 3. And now we're going to go through and FOIL. I think we totally could use the array here. I'm going to go through the process of just distribution so that those of you who are maybe more comfortable with that can get through it okay. This becomes x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times a negative 3 would be negative 3x squared. The next multiplication is a negative x times x. I'm going to write that underneath my other x squared term. Makes the addition really clean and simple. Negative x times negative 3 would be positive 3x. Now the negative 2 times x would be a negative 2x. I know this is going to take more room vertically, but negative 2 times negative 3 is a positive 6. The nice thing about it is that I can just add straight down, which from elementary school you kind of learned that process of just adding straight down. A negative 3 and a negative 1 is negative 4. X squared. 3x minus 2x is positive x. And of course we have plus 6. And there's my answer. And that's what you're going to be working on today. It's multiplication, it's addition, subtraction. Hopefully it's not too much to take on and you'll do well here. Good luck and we'll see you in class.